Hey everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and we are here to talk about attorney Susan Loggins, who is refusing to show up in New York and testify. And you guys know that I had shared with you in a prior video about a week ago where Susan Loggins was saying that she couldn't come to New York to testify because her mother is ill, and Susan Loggins is in her early 70s currently, but she is the attorney that handled several of these lawsuits that we've heard about in this case. And so our friend Jim Derogatis, and I use that term friend jokingly because he is nobody's friend. He's actually have stalked R. Kelly since the 90s. Okay, so he did an article in the New Yorker a few days ago where he is talking about Susan Loggins and the fact that she didn't even think that these women were victims, that she thought they were disgruntled girlfriends. And so he talks about how Tiffany Hawkins was the first lawsuit, and then we know that Susan Loggins went on to do several lawsuits against R. Kelly, and she even had on her website at one point that if you wanted to sue him, she was the person to come to. And so in this article he starts out talking about talking about the trial and the history of the trial and what's going on. And so he says during the same period, Kelly became a dominant voice in popular music, selling 100 million records and emerging as one of the most successful singers, songwriters, and producers in the history of R&B. In 2002, he was indicted on CP charges, but the case brought by the state of Illinois took 6 years to go to trial. It was narrowly focused on a 14-year-old girl alleged to be in one of the videotapes, and neither the girl nor her parents testified, and Kelly was subsequently acquitted. And so then he goes on and says part of the reason that he's now facing extensive criminal charges is that he has been silenced by many of his accusers by paying them cash settlements in exchange for their signatures on non-disclosure agreements, a tactic used by wealthy and powerful men. And then he points out as examples of that Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby. And so he talks about how many of the agreements that Kelly went into with Susan Loggins and the accusers hold on a second. Somebody's trying to reach me. Okay, I'm sorry. He went on to say that she went on to run like the settlement factory against Kelly, and that is why she is listed as lawyer number one in the motion by the Eastern District of New York, as they're trying to get additional evidence into the court record. And so Loggins has disputed the characterization, noting that the vast majority of personal injury cases end in settlements. And so he would refer to her as the settlement factory when he would write about her involvement in these non-disclosures. And she's like, no, I'm not the settlement factory. If you go to any personal injury attorney, they will tell you that that's what they do. That's their business. Those are the type of cases that they have. And that it just so happened that the people that were suing R. Kelly found out about her and decided to use her since she had been successful. And then you all know that one of her associate attorneys testified, I believe it was in the first week. Her name was Courtney Wilson, and she was actually the one that did the intake for Geronda Pace, I believe, and he might mention it further down in this article. And so he goes on to say that Loggan, doesn't want to appear, and her longtime assistant, Kim Jones, also doesn't want to appear, and that both women are saying that it's because of the pandemic, and Loggan is basically saying that she has to take care of her elderly mother, and so she can't leave her there. And when he reached out to her for comment, she said that she had not yet been asked by the prosecutors to come to New York to testify. So there seems to be the prosecution, I think, pretty much knows who they want and who they don't want to show up in that courtroom. And so here they are going before the judge saying that the lady won't show up. And then when the judge offered to issue a summons for her arrest if she doesn't show up, they kind of let that slide by. And so now we're figuring out that that is most likely because she doesn't want to tell them that she didn't believe that these people were not victims. So he goes on to say that Loggan is now 71 years old and lives here in Florida with her husband, a professional golfer, but most of her career she was based in Chicago, where she cultivated a flamboyant media presence. Her website bills her as one of the best personal injury lawyers in the country, and also notes that she holds a PhD in psychology. In 1994, she spoke to a journalist about raising show horses and being a pilot, claiming that she used to fly from Chicago to California to get her hair cut. She made headlines earlier this year for filing 2 lawsuits against the Chicago Blackhawks hockey team, alleging that a former assistant coach had sexually assaulted players. And that coach denied the allegations, of course. And she granted several interviews about those suits, but has long avoided speaking in detail about Kelly, citing non-disclosure agreements. She has declined to say much about the claims that she has brought against him, besides the fact that they have been numerous. And so it's quite interesting that she doesn't want to go on the record, and it kind of leads into this history of rumors that the reason she was getting all these people coming to her, it wasn't that she was such a great lawyer, but it was because there were people inside Kelly's camp that she had a connection with who were sending these people to her because they knew that, he would just settle, that there would just be a quick settlement, that he wouldn't try to fight any of these charges. And then it's also been alleged in the past that some of these people may have been getting a kickback from her on these lawsuits once they were settled. And that would include Demetrius Smith and Daryl McDavid. And so once again, that would be a good reason why the prosecution isn't pushing to get her into one of those witness stands, into the witness stand. And then today is supposed to be the last day of the prosecution's case, and that they're supposed to wrap up their side of the case. So unless she testifies today, it doesn't look like she is going to testify at all. And so the article goes on to say that Loggan entered the R. Kelly business in 1996 when her firm filed a civil lawsuit against the singer on behalf of a young woman named Tiffany Hawkins. In the lawsuit, Hawkins claimed to have met Kelly in 91 when she was 15 and he was 24. And then Derek Goddess talks about when he spoke with Hawkins in 2019, she told him that she had been an aspiring singer, aren't they all? She had recorded biking vocals on Kelly's debut album, Born into the 90s, and had been a he says biking, but I'm thinking it's supposed to be bike up singer for Aaliyah. And who was Kelly's protege, who became one of her close friends. And then Kelly illegally married Aaliyah. And then he goes on to talk about that whole situation that was a part of the case. Hawkins alleged that she and other minors participated in group sex with Kelly. And we know that that is what Javante Cunningham testified to earlier this week. I believe it was Monday. And then we were asking, because she mentioned somebody named Tiffany, and I said in my video, oh, I wonder if that was Tiffany Hawkins. And so I guess here we're seeing that it was Tiffany Hawkins. And then she said that she finally ended her relationship with him in 1994, 4 months before her 18th birthday. Then 2 months later, she claimed that she attempted suicide, which, okay. Anyway, so Hawkins continued to hear stories about Kelly and underage women, and in 1996 she decided that he needed to be stopped, and she sought advice from Demetrius Smith, his longtime friend and former road manager, who had recently broken ties with the star. And so Smith told Derek Goddess that he brought Hawkins to Susan Loggan's and Associates because he had seen Loggan's splashy ads around the city, and that a young associate at the firm by the name of Ian Alexander, and that name sounds familiar. I'm wondering if he testified, because I was reading today that there have been 43 witnesses that have been called over the past 3 weeks that this trial has been going on. And I think that Ian Alexander may have been one of them, because for some reason that name sounds familiar to me. But anyway, he conducted the intake interview with Hawkins, and that he denoted that he was a big fan of R. Kelly, and that he was very shocked by what Hawkins told him about R. Kelly, and that Loggins had no idea who R. Kelly was, but she agreed to accept Hawkins as a client anyway. And so Hawkins wanted to press criminal charges, and Alexander said that he contacted the Illinois State's Attorney's Office on her behalf, but according to Hawkins and Alexander, the office chose not to pursue the case. Now, you mean to tell me that a 18-year-old, or however old she claimed, so she said she stopped seeing him 4 months shy of her 18th birthday. So that was in 1994. She went to the police in 96. Why didn't they take up the case? Because that would have been within the statute of limitations, right? So why is it? Because I think minors have, from the time 20 years past their 18th birthday in Chicago, to file assault charges. So why wouldn't the state attorney take up her case? Was it because they didn't believe her? Anyway, Hawkins felt that the reason they didn't take up the case was because, the stereotypical, because I was a young black girl and nobody cares about black girls. And for those of you who think I'm being snarky when I say that, the reason I say that is because I know people personally. I know someone in my family who was a young black girl who went to the police and told, and the person that assaulted her received 32 years in prison. Okay, so I know that they believe black girls. There are a lot of people in prison today for assault on minors who were black girls. So this whole notion that nobody pays attention to black girls is a farce. So Alexander had helped Hawkins file a civil suit against Kelly. His label, you guys are always asking, where was Sony? Why isn't Sony ever sued? So evidently the Hawkins lawsuit included the label, which would have been, I believe, Jive back then. But either way, it was still under the Sony umbrella, whether it was Jive or RCA. I think this pitch came, not the pitch, but the turnover from Jive to RCA may have happened in 2012, maybe. Yeah, RCA took over in 2012, but they took over from, was it Zumba Records? Because I think Jive was acquired by Zumba, and then Zumba was acquired by RCA, if I'm not correct. So in any event, the label, his management company, claiming that the singer, quote, had a propensity to have sexual contact with minors, and seeking damages of $10 million. So Hawkins gave a 7.5-hour deposition, after which Kelly's lawyers offered her $250,000 to settle. It was only their first offer, but Alexander said that Loggins pressured him to get Hawkins to take the deal, something that Loggins has denied repeatedly. and her firm then kept a third of the money, which is standard practice. And Hawkins told Derogatis that she never even met Loggins. So she didn't even have the pleasure of meeting the attorney that took 1/3 of her money for doing nothing more but contacting Kelly, his management, and his label to tell them about this lawsuit. And they was like, get that hell for $250,000 and get her out of here. And I am sure that the label, when they were contacted, went to Kelly and his management team and said, make this go away, settle this now. And they offered that $250 and kept it rolling. So that means that Loggins got about $8,250 to $8,333, something like that. So Hawkins would have gotten what, 16,000, I mean, $250,000. Loggins got 80,000 of it, and then she would have gotten, that would have left her with what, 170,000, and then after taxes, she would have had to pay on it. So she probably ended up with about 140,000 of that 250,000, something like that. Anyway, so that lawsuit set the template for much of what followed during the next 2.5 decades. 2 more lawsuits followed in 2001 and 2002 on behalf of 2 alleged victims in Chicago, both of whom claimed that Kelly had contact with them when they were minors. Those 2 cases were also settled out of court. Subsequent cases were settled without a publicly filed lawsuit. Loggins would inform Kelly's lawyers of the client's claims and then negotiate a settlement between the 2 parties, keeping the charges out of civil court and also out of the news. So there aren't even any legal documents filed with the courthouse regarding these lawsuits. Interesting. So we were wondering why these non-disclosures weren't popping up and why the Kate chick was the only one that had a non-disclosure. And so there you have it. It's because she didn't file them with the courthouse. So then it says the prosecutors in Kelly's trial have cited 4 federal cases to support the argument that non-disclosure agreements should not prevent victims from speaking out for the public record, including a ruling against Bill Cosby in 2016 after he sued one of his victims, Andrea Constead, for speaking with prosecutors. As a result, 2 alleged victims whom Loggins represented have testified in Brooklyn. The first was Jane Doe number 4, which is Geronda Pace, claimed that Kelly began contact with her in 2009, but the truth is she began contact with him in 2009. And you guys, if you get an opportunity, go to my video where I talk about the Apple Genius. It says something like Kate and the Apple Genius. And go into the comment. Well, you don't even have to go into the comments because I pinned the comment at the top of the comment section. And so remember, I was saying that I had a headache after I read the transcript for that day in court, and I was so confused, and that how the prosecutor must have read the jury and realized that the jury wasn't connecting, because it was like she just cut off the questioning and then moved on to the next person. Where there was someone in the comments who posted that she took the reading of the transcript, broke it down, and then she basically specifies the trail that the prosecutor was trying to make in her test or in her questioning of that Apple technician. And it is very interesting. So please go and check that out. I pinned it to the top of the comments. So anyway, it says that the first Jane Doe, number 4, claimed that Kelly began contact with her in 2009 when she was 16 and he was in his 40s. She told the court, quote, "I got a lawyer because I wanted to press charges, criminal charges, against him, but she never did. Instead, Loggan struck a $1.5 million settlement with Kelly's attorneys in exchange for a non-disclosure agreement." The court also heard from Courtney Wilson, a former associate at Loggan's firm who conducted Jane Doe number 4's intake interview. Let's see. The other alleged victim, Jane Doe number 11, and I believe number 11 was Kate, testified that she began a consensual relationship with Kelly in 2001 when she was an adult. And remember, she was the one that sued because he gave her herpes. They reached a cash settlement for $200,000 was her settlement. And then he goes on to say that 2 more Loggan's former clients are cited anonymously in the prosecutor's motion to admit evidence. And then we know that Jane Doe number 12 was Jane Doe number 11, Kate's best friend. And she went and told the friend that how easy it was for her to get the settlement money, and told the friend to go and file a lawsuit also. And the friend did file that lawsuit, but remember, the friend has died since then. She passed away since all of that happened. So Derek Goddess, who admits that he's been stalking R. Kelly for 21 years, says that Loggan has gone on the record just twice in conversations spaced 2 decades apart. She says there are 2 aspects to this. She told him first in 2002, referring to the clients she represented with claims against Kelly. Quote, "They don't look at it negatively when it's happening. They look at it as a positive thing that R. Kelly is their boyfriend. It's not until later when he dumps them and then they try to get a job in the music industry that they realize that they're blackballed." Now, how are they blackballed? Because he probably ain't even thinking about them chicks after they walk out that door. And they probably didn't even have any talent, because if they did, he would have promoted that talent like he has done other artists like Sparkle and McKay Michelle and the Selena Johnson chick. And then there are other male rappers and stuff that he has helped get into the industry or start their career. Aaliyah, so obviously these folks didn't have no talent to start with. And so he says, she went on to say, they get older and realize that they screwed up and they fail for it. It's like any young girl feels when she gets dumped by a guy. At that point, they start telling people, look at this bad thing that happened to me. And when they come to us as a civil lawyer, there's no benefit to them to bring a criminal case. Okay. So that's what she said in 2002. And then he says that the second time he spoke with her was in early 2019, 2 years after the Me Too movement brought newly intense scrutiny to men who exploit their wealth, fame, and power, and shortly after the documentary SRK first aired. I asked Loggan whether she stood by her earlier quote. I said that, and that's right, she said. Later she went on, look at 50 Shades of Grey. And I have mentioned that before, that a lot of this stuff, and it happened because I think the first installment of 50 Shades of Grey came out in 2015. And that's when Kelly bought that house down in Atlanta, moved to Atlanta. And them folks was talking about they was locked in bedrooms and stuff. And I was like, some of this crap really sounds like it came from the 50 Shades of Grey movie. And then, the book was out years before the movie came out. So that's really what it sounds like. And she went on to say, I really believe there is an inherent desire of a lot of women who are in fatherless homes to have someone who is stronger than they are. Wow. I can't speak to that because I had a father in the home. And I've never looked at another man as a father figure. As a matter of fact, my father was such a great father that is probably why I have very little patience with men in general. So I can't even speak to that. But I do understand that a lot of times when women don't have their father around, they look to men to be that father figure, and unfortunately they end up with men who were just like the fathers that walked out on them. So anyway, during the 2019 interview, he said that he asked Loggan about the first civil suit that her firm was involved in regarding Kelly, the one filed by Ian Alexander on behalf of Tiffany Hawkins, which set much of the firm's later business in motion. And she says, I thought he was a schmuck, Loggan said of Alexander. He doesn't disagree. He only stayed at Loggan's firm for 2 years, but he regrets his time there. And he was quoted as saying, "I was definitely a schmuck by virtue of the fact that I worked for her and let her sell out these girls," he told me, referring to the women who went to later accuse Kelly of abuse. "That's something that I'll have to live with." So I guess he is saying that if he had it all to do over again, he would have done things differently and really tried to get these women to press charges. But it looks like he tried to get them to press charges in Tiffany Hawkins' case, and they declined to do so because I don't know if they didn't believe her or that they knew she had willingly went with him. I don't know. Anyway, I know here in Florida, it doesn't matter if the girl willingly went or not. If you are an adult, and then also in Florida has some of the strictest consent laws. Like our consent laws are 18 and over. So if you're under 18, you can't even have sex. And I think they have one stipulation is that if you are under the age of 18 and have sex, the person can't be more than 3 years older than you, but that doesn't include a 17-year-old having sex with a 20-year-old. I think you would have to be, so like a 14-year-old could have sex with a 17-year-old, but I don't think a 17-year-old can have sex with anyone over 17. So anyway, I thought this article was interesting and I wanted to bring it to you. So it'll be interesting to see if Loggan ever takes the stand, whether via video or in person. But it looks like if she does take the stand, she is not going to give what they need her to give. That she's basically going to say she didn't believe them. And if she doesn't say that, then hopefully his attorneys have read this article and knows that, or read the previous article from 2002 and knows that she didn't believe these girls, that it was just a money grab for her firm. And then it helped the girls get some money, because even that lawsuit with Geronda, that first lawsuit for $1.5 million or whatever, even that lawsuit, I don't even think Geronda got all that money. And then what money she did get, for some reason, she is paying it back or had to pay it back because she talked about the case or she broke the non-disclosure or something to that nature. And then she went back and sued again for another amount. And then it seemed like one of those lawsuits, because she filed 4 lawsuits total, and I think 2 of them actually paid out. And one of them, they came back to Geronda and told Geronda that because she was underage or something, that they had to put the money in a trust, and then she would get like so much money, like $50,000 a month or something like that from this trust. And then all of a sudden the money just stopped. So I don't think she ever got paid all the money for whatever lawsuits that she got. And then it came out in trial that she had to repay one of those lawsuits. So anyway, guys, that's it for me. Leave your comments below. Let me know what you think about Miss Loggan, and review the video. Leave your comments. Rate the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And until the next time, I shall talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.